All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Enhancing Your LMS Experience. Take your trainings to the next level. I am Heather Morton. I am the director of the Learning and Organization Development team, and I have Dr. Shannon Hill with me here. She's our senior learning designer.
Hi.
And we are so excited to meet with you guys today and tell you all the fun things that we can do in the learning management system here at CentralReach. So, for our agenda today, we are going to be covering transitioning your content to the LMS from Learn. We're going to talk about creating next level asynchronous courses with the wonderful Dr. Hill. We're going to talk about creating customized learning paths and how we can do that in the LMS. And we're going to look at how we can take your courses to the next level with course settings. So today we're going to be starting here on how to move your courses out of Learn. So some of you may be familiar with Learn and how we used to develop courses in there. I know myself and Dr. Hill, we've created a lot of courses in Learn back in the day. So in the last year, though, we've transitioned to the new LMS. And so we want to show you some of those differences and some of the things that you can do in the new LMS that were not possible in our old LMS. So your options in Learn included text pages, video pages, quiz pages, and file pages. Those are your only options. And I'm going to kind of show you how those four options compare in Learn versus the new LMS. And then Dr. Hill is going to show you how to take all of that stuff up several notches to make it even more interactive and fun. So this first page here that we're looking at, this is an example of a text page in Learn. This will allow you to add an image, but it's fairly limited beyond that, okay? So this is what it's gonna look like for the learner in there. Their progress is kind of down here with this green leaf, and it's pretty limited there, okay, for that text page. Now, our text page here, something very similar, just text. But you can see it looks a little cleaner for the learner. And then we also have a lot of things that we're able to modify within the text box, including colored font, images, and making bullet points and tables and things like that. That actually just works a little bit easier than any of the things that we're able to do in a text box in Learn currently. Now, those video pages. Okay, very similar, right? We have a video up here. This is Learn. We have a video down here. This is the new LMS. Not too many differences right there. The biggest difference is from the setting side in the new LMS. And what that is it will allow you to add captioning if you'd like, and also descriptions to the page. So I could add in a description at the top that says, "Hey, you need to view 95% of this video in order for it to be complete or considered complete for this course," things like that. In the old Learn LMS system here, you can just drop that video in, and that's about all you can do with that particular page. Okay, so a little bit of differences there. Next, now quizzes. This is like one of my favorite changes. So at the top here, we see your page in Learn. Okay, so you're able to provide, you're unable to provide feedback to the learner as they answer the questions with the quiz page. So here's your quiz. They can answer their questions. There's no feedback there. They'll hit submit at the end and get their results page, okay? In the new LMS, we have this ability to create a customized welcome page on your quiz. So you can introduce whatever you need to tell your learner on that welcome page. They hit start quiz, and then it will give them their quiz questions. So you can see it's a little bit different where up here it's showing you all the quiz questions on a single page. Down here, you're looking at one question, then you'll go to the next question, etc. A little bit more digestible for the learner. In addition, you see this red box around the answer. I got it wrong, and it's telling me that with that red box. Something that's not showing here right now, but we have the ability to provide feedback in that. So my red box would also have feedback saying, "It's wrong because," or maybe I got it right, and it gives me a green box and I can put in there, "It's right because." So there's a lot of options we're able to do with quizzes there. Now, our results page. So the results page, this is what it looks like in Learn, where it will tell you, what you got correct if you passed, and then your certificate download is here as well. Now, if I immediately go and download my certificate, that's not a problem. But if I don't, oftentimes we saw in the past that learners would really struggle to find where their certificate was. Okay, so we'll show you kind of some of those differences and how it looks in the new LMS to make it a little bit easier for your learners. Here we see that the quiz results in the LMS show how many questions answered, correct, incorrect, and it's going to give us this bar here. Okay, so I had 6 questions answered, and I got them all incorrect. So good job. I can give messages here for what they need to do again, or like my feedback, what was required for their passing. I can retake, I can review questions, I can just go to the next section. Okay. And then I just wanted to show here certificates. So on the learner dashboard, they're going to be able to see their certificates right here. They're going to live here always. So once they've completed a course, they're here for them to easily get back to. And then any administrators for our LMS portal also have the ability to download those certificates from the learner's profile and account from their account. So the certificates are much more accessible in our new LMS in the way that we have made those adaptations for you guys to just provide a little bit better user experience there. Next, we're just going to compare our file page. So on the file page here, we can see that we have to, in Learn, we have to just hit download. Okay, when we download, it's going to download to the files in your account in Central Reach, and then you can get access to that file. The file page is, significantly different in our new LMS. We wanted you to be able to see that file right on the page. So I can look at that file and say, okay, cool. And then the instructor actually gets to decide, do they want to download it? Do they want to print it? Or do they just need to view it? And we can decide that and set that up however we need to on the course designer side. But then it's definitely a different user experience for your learner where they don't have to download and then try to go find it. And then by then they're like, oh, where am I at in the course? And trying to navigate back and forth. They'll just view it as part of the course as they go. Okay, my very, very, very favorite change, and I think Dr. Hill would agree with me on this one. So now any changes that you make in the LMS, they can be published when you're ready. So once they're published, the course will then be updated for all current users with access to the course. That's right. All of the current users will then see all of your changes. This is something that can't be done in Learn and something that we struggled with as course creators because anytime we wanted to make a change to our course, we would have to issue a new version of that course to give to the users and to the learners. In this case, all we have to do is make whatever changes we need to. As soon as we hit publish, all learners with access will see those, and then anyone who gets it in the future will also see those. So that's been my favorite change and update with the LMS and something we're really excited to be able to share with you guys. So now I'm going to take a little breath and I'm going to pass things over to Dr. Hill.
All right. And I would agree that is a huge hallelujah change, right?
Absolutely. Just publish and you're on your way.
Okay, so I'm going to be showing you guys what it looks like from the course builder side of things. But we're looking at it in a course preview, so I can flip back and forth and show you the admin side and what the viewer sees. We're beginning with just a little introduction about what I'm going to talk about today. I personally spend a lot of time thinking about ways that we can make our trainings here at the Institute, especially the online asynchronous trainings, more in alignment with behavior analytic principles of teaching and learning. We're behavior analysts. our courses should be behavior analytic, and not only in content but in form. So I'm going to share with you 5 tips that we have learned from experimenting with the tools that we now have available in the LMS that push us closer to that goal. Of course, we are never quite there, but we are moving closer and we're getting better, I think. So we'll share what we've learned. So I'm going to begin with talking about video tips. And I'm going to do that by actually showing you a video. But before I do, I did want to give you one little micro tip. So it's tip 1A. Our platform does have one little oddity that you should plan around if you want to show a graphic and also include some narration. And that is that you could either record video of your screen just like you would do in recording a PowerPoint with voiceover and upload that as video. Or you could upload an image onto a text page and add an audio file. We really do recommend that if you're going to be talking for more than 1.5 to 2 minutes, that you do that as a video. And the reason is that unfortunately, our learners have the ability to rewind their video, but they do not have the ability to rewind their audio. And it's really irritating if you 3 minutes in, you missed, 1.5 seconds and you need to go back, and you just can't do that without listening to that entire 3 minutes again. So that's my micro tip. And let's move on to bigger picture things. I'm just going to show you a little video and we'll talk about it on the other side. Behavior analysts know a great deal about teaching and learning. We know learning requires reinforcement. We know that skill complexity does not change learning processes, but that as learners gain complex behaviors, their reinforcers do change. We know that people can learn in many ways, such as by listening, but the listening is more likely to inspire action than to actually teach the person how to act. We know that people can learn by looking at visual representations of new information, but they're not likely to retain that new information for very long. We know that people can learn by watching someone else do something, but that 1 or 2 views is not likely to make them masters of that action. So why do we make online video-based trainings so passive? Video can actually be very useful. It's great for introducing a new idea that we will build upon with other instruction. It can be handy for explaining a concept because it allows us to present auditory and visual information at the same time. It's especially useful for demonstrations because we can edit and make sure we direct attention to the relevant parts of a process. And if we line up a series of videos effectively, video is excellent for creating opportunities to practice and for allowing the learner to access immediate feedback on their performance. Unfortunately, most of us were not trained to be filmmakers, and we are as susceptible to the pitfalls of response effort as anyone else. So we don't use what we know because we don't always have enough time to learn the new skills or to apply more time-consuming skill sets. Pressure from the top exerts negative reinforcement influences on us to check off that to-do box. And praise from learners for mediocre attempts at training gives us that all-powerful, immediate positive reinforcement. So all of this combines to keep us recording like we're lecturing. And let's face it, even the best of lectures are only useful for a brief period of time. Do you really think all of those folks who request our slides are looking at them again? Wouldn't it be great if we could get away from videos that talk and talk and talk with no time for learners to process each point? Videos of slides that just sit on the screen and a speaker in a bubble at the side of the page? Videos of some person standing there telling us a bunch of stuff with no action from the listener? And videos that certify that we know something just because we listened for an hour and then passed a quiz that we probably could have passed even before spending that hour. Of course you do, and that's why you're here. So when you use video, keep these things in mind.
Something should change on your screen every few seconds. That's right. I said every few seconds. Keep it multimodal. Send your message both visually and audibly when possible. Say it in as few words as possible and with visuals that are as simple as you can make them, especially if you're putting words on the screen. And intersperse your video with opportunities to assess. Then use video again to give feedback on what correct or predictably incorrect performance would look like.
Okay, so I am no professional animator, but that is just an example of how you can do other things with video. And then the next question becomes, what are those things that we're going to intersplice with these short videos that keep that engagement coming? So that brings us to tip number 2. I'm calling these our click and learn pages, and we have 3 different types of those. One is called the interactive pages, and the other is called highlight zone page and highlight zone challenge page. So I'm going to start with the highlight zone page. Okay, so a highlight zone page is really for the instructor side of things. This is for providing more information on your screen while you're looking at an image. And it works really nicely in coordination with narration. So here's an example from our 40-hour RBT course.
So we will represent our coordinates by putting what goes on the x-axis first and what goes on the y-axis second. And we will find the point where the two numbers meet. So for example, on the right-hand side, you can see that our first coordinates are 2, 1. That means on day 2, the person achieved the score of 1. So we would move along the x-axis to the number 2, and then from there, move up 1 space to intersect with 1 on the y-axis. And if you will click on that spot, you will see that we are correct. We were looking for the score 2, 1, and we found it.
Okay, so each one that they select, it shows them on the screen where that is. Now that's cool, but wouldn't it be even more cool if the learner was the one who had to decide where on the image to click? And that is exactly what the highlight zone challenge page is. So this is an example of that. In this example, the learner had already been given some instruction on what are some commonly occurring errors with automatically generating graph programs. And then they come to this activity in order to make sure that they learned all of that. So they look over here, and this could be a question, it could be a directive, it could be a hint. We have hints in this scenario. This should not be here at all. They've already learned that we don't put titles at the top of our graphs. They got that correct. So they have to click in the correct space in order to move forward. When they don't click in the correct space, they get an incorrect or they get no response at all. And then the interactive page. So here is an example where all I did was take a screenshot of that last moment in the animation that you just saw. And I uploaded that as an image. Once you have done that, you can add these little plus marks where you can include additional information about whatever we're looking at on the screen. So I can click here. This could be a whole paragraph of additional information if I wanted it to be. But what I think is even more cool is to put a hyperlink here. And so if the learner wants to learn more about how to keep their videos moving, how to be brief, that's where I need to study, then they would be taken directly to content about that. That could be another page in this course, it could be another course in the catalog, or it could even be a page in the open internet. So I really like that option. And I'm thinking of that as a type of content curation that's led by the learner. They are deciding what they want to know more about. But you frequently may want your instructor to be able to curate instruction and content. So we can do that as well. And that's tip 3. And we can do that in 2 different ways. Tally pages and using our test results in an objective test. So let's begin by looking at a tally page. So tallies, they're a form of assessment that's kind of like taking a magazine quiz where your results are self-report and you get stratified into a group based on how you responded. So let's take a look. I am just going to randomly answer these questions. There's 7 questions, and as I am responding, I am accumulating a score based on points that the instructor loaded into the system. Okay, so then when I get to my results page, here I am qualified as a knowledge seeker. Now from the back end side, I can tell you that I could have had one of 3 things show up here, and they are roughly equivalent to beginner, advanced, and intermediate. So once I have my category, I can then come here and load another hyperlink or instructive or directive to tell them where to go for additional content. And that way, your people who are intermediate and advanced learners don't have to proceed through things that they already know, and they can be stratified into different groups, and making sure also that the beginning learners don't get to bypass where they need to be. Okay, but that is self-report, and we don't always want to make those decisions based on self-report. So you can also do this with objective tests. It's a little less smooth, but here I have a test on differential reinforcement. So I'm just going to click through and get a result for you as if I was a learner. And the same thing, so it's a little less smooth because I took the test, I have a score. I have the ability as the instructor to create this end of test message, and that is where I can decide where I want people to go based on the score they received. The only problem is they have to be honest about the score they received, because we have to do this all in one box. So if they scored above 80%, they would go here. If they scored less than 80%, they would go here if those links were set up. Okay, so we're going to change gears just a little bit for tip number 4 and talk about flip cards. And I absolutely love flip cards as study aids. And you can use them on a couple of different levels. On a more elementary level, you can use them as flashcards like this. Now, I would love it if we had the full functionality of creating SAFMEDS type flashcards, but we don't yet have that on our platform here. But we can get close with the instructions that we give the learner. So here we are saying, practice saying aloud the meaning of each acronym until you can do so fluently here and when you encounter them elsewhere. And a tip to strengthen your learning is to say the cards in a different order each time you try. So our learner can come back to this page as many times as they want and practice what each of these acronyms stand for. But if we want, we can use flip cards in a more advanced way. On this example, there's been previous pages where the learner's been exposed to information about ethical decision making, and then they're given a scenario. So then they come to this application page where they're walked through the first step in the ethical decision making process. So this time, the flip cards are just showing them each element of the RBT ethical code, and they decide, I think 1.03 applies, and they get immediate feedback. You can do this as in a way that we are telling them why their answer is correct, as well as why their answer is incorrect. If I can find one. Yeah, there's one that's incorrect. And then my final tip, tip 5, you are probably interested in the assessment abilities. So we are going to look at how to use tests and quizzes for all of those different levels of formative, iterative, and summative uses of assessment. One thing to bear in mind is the difference between a quiz and a test. Quizzes allow you to give those rejoinders that Heather was talking about earlier. and immediate feedback on a question by question level. And with tests, they don't get any feedback until they have completed the test. So quizzes are more for that formative teaching, responding type thing. And I think it's probably quizzes that we would use most and save those tests for either baseline assessment or end of lesson. So here is an example of how you would use rejoinders, or how you could use rejoinders. So the person reads the question. Behavior analysis is used for a variety of reasons. The most well-known is the treatment of blank. If they make a mistake and choose ADHD, we can use this rejoinder to tell them why it's incorrect, which is what we have here. You can also, as with the other examples I gave, build a hyperlink in here and take them directly to additional instruction if you want. So one option would be to link them to a page in your course, give them instructions so they study this infographic, and then they would be able to click a link that you have embedded in this text page to take them either back to that assessment or to additional content that you want them to go to. And now for my very last example, this is the behind the scenes setup of a quiz or a test. So I'm going to show you the edit. I began this by giving you super specific advice on video versus audio. So I'm going to end with some more super specific advice on creating quizzes and tests. I advise all of our team to create a test library for every test or quiz that they make, because this is the only way that you can reuse a question without having to retype it. So we take care to label our libraries so that we can find something again. Once you have created a lot of tests and a lot of courses, then you're going to have a huge library. So you want those labels to be meaningful. But also there's times when you may want your learner to not be able to just sit and take the test over and over and over again until they randomly memorize those particular questions. So for that, we use something called pools. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and show you. There's just a little button that says enable pools. And since I already have that pressed, it says add a new pool. And what that means is that I can pull from any test library. And I'm sorry with my Southern accent, pool and pull sound a lot alike. So I can pull from any test library and create a pool within the test. So for example, if we have a learning path with 7 courses, this is the 7th course, I want to give them 5 of these questions randomly each time they take the test from this course's library. But I also, for maintenance purposes, want to make sure they remember what they learned in chapter 6, chapter 3, all the way through. So I can bring those libraries in as well and tell the test to pull 1 question or 2 questions, whatever I want, into that test. So each time the person takes the test, they get different questions from this module and from previous modules. And if they're sitting side by side with someone else, guess what? Those 2 people are going to be getting different questions while they take the same test. So I think that's a really awesome tool. And those are your 5 tips for today. And I'm going to launch it back to Heather now so that she can tell you some more about the behind the scenes setup.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hill. One of the things that I love about when you do those test pools is on that results page I was showing you guys earlier, is that it will tell you on there, you got 0 out of 5 from this, section, and, 5 out of 5 from this. So then I actually know which modules I may have struggled with as a learner and can go back and review those and look at that content more, and just gives the learner a lot more insight when you do those pools is really awesome.
Yeah, and that's a really great thing for test prep for people who are maybe certificate seekers and preparing for the BACB exam or whatever. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we are going to now talk about customized learning paths. So what is a learning path? So as Dr. Hill was kind of showing us all these really cool ways that we can build these courses, and now I have to go behind her. You saw that cool stuff she put together, and now you'll have to bear with me on my limited ability to create courses here. But what we can do is we can take courses, individual courses, and then we can string them together in a learning path so that your learner has to take them in a particular order or knows that that chunk of courses go together, and you can really set them up however you want. We see a lot of organizations using them for onboarding, for example, and they'll string all the courses together that they need all new employees to take. So we can do a lot of things there. And what Dr. Hill has done for us, which has been amazing, as she has rebuilt our 40-hour RBT course. And when she did that, she took a course that we had and learned that was great, had the information, but it was lectures. It was very long lectures. And we got a lot of feedback saying, the content's great, we're learning stuff, but we're bored with it, right? So when we got the new LMS, we took that as a great opportunity to build individual modules that we have strung together in a learning path. So I'm just going to play this little video here and just show you guys how this works. So with my learning path, I have my title and I can, put my description there. The learner can see all the different courses they'll have to take in order to achieve their certificate at the bottom. I can make the course an elective, so our RBT study group's an elective. Then my first course here, it's required. So I can continue this course, but it's not finished, which means this next course I can't start or do anything with because I haven't finished the previous course. Okay, so that is just a little glimpse at how you could take, any courses you guys want to build together and string it together into one single path. Now, learning paths can be customized. So we can, add some of your courses, sprinkle in some of our own courses. Really, we can do whatever you want there. So we see a lot of orgs that also reorder our learning path. So maybe they use our 40-hour course, but they also introduce their own trainings at certain times. And so they've asked us, hey, can you put this in a different order for us? Absolutely, we can definitely do that. We can also take all of those individual courses and allow you to utilize them for maybe follow-up trainings. So they can still be broken apart and used individually. They can be used as the whole 40-hour. You can also use a couple of our courses and a couple of yours and issue your own certificate. There's a lot of options there. Now, all of these things are really fantastic, but none of them work unless we do those background settings. Okay, so this is, where we're going to launch into next. And our final section here is just to show you how to take your courses to that very next level by getting your settings right. And that will make all the difference in all these cool things that Shannon and myself have showed you today. Okay. So the first thing we want to do and look at is our catalog. So we use the catalog section in our settings in order to add a description, course image, and our author. And I'll show you how that works and why that matters, okay? So in here, I click into the catalog. I'm going to add my title. I'm going to put my description in there that my learner will see. I'm going to add my images. The system will tell you what size you need to do. This is pretty important because our courses are mobile friendly. So this does allow for it to show up and look nice on both a mobile device as well as a computer. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to add my author. You can add a source if you want, publish date, all of that. And then what happens is for your learner, it looks beautiful. They come in, they say, oh, I see my Sierra Unite course. I see there's a pretty image here. I see the description and I see who created the course. So it's great. It gives me a lot of information there. Okay, so that's our first setting. Now our design and display settings, that's our really important section. This is where all those cool things that you set up in your course only work if we have certain settings turned on. And I want to show you what all of those are. Okay, so what we're going to talk about first here, discussions. So discussions, when I turn that on, it allows me to decide how I want those to look on the screen, if it's a thread or not. And if I want learners to be able to like it, we're going to talk about the display titles. galleries, showing progress, quiz builders, and assessment page results, and even instructor messaging. So let's go through that a little bit more in depth of each of those. So for instructor messaging, when I toggle this on, this is going to allow your learners to directly message the instructor for the course. So we turn that on, they will be able to send a private message here, and then that goes to the instructor. We turn this on for our study group, for example, and we get an email and they can say, a lot of times we get requests that say, hey, can you add us to Kahoots, which is a really cool platform that Dr. Hill's been using to do quizzes, and they can kind of play around and test with that. So this is a nice way for them to be able to communicate with Dr. Hill and get their questions answered, okay? Discussions, this is another feature that you can decide to turn on. If it's enabled, learners will be able to have open discussion forum organized by sections of the course. They can start a new discussion. I can say, is it general, meaning it lives anywhere, or is it related to a certain section of the course? And they can kind of decide that. Now, this is important because if you turn on discussions, that's going to be there. If you don't want them to do that, then we want to make sure that's turned off. Display page titles. So this is something that we always turn on our courses. And the reason is because I really like our learners to be able to see all of our sections that we have here. It makes it a lot easier for them to follow along and make sure of like where they're at. It gives them just a little bit more information on the screen so that they can kind of see and orient themselves in the course. Resources. So when I turn on the resources, this allows learners to access any additional resources that I may have added to my course. If I add resources but don't turn this on, your learners aren't going to be able to see those. So we want to make sure that that's there. It will give them this nice resources button that they can click down on their sidebar. And then they will see, oh, I have a file here about going to Disneyland. How fun. I certainly wouldn't want to miss out on that. I can view it or download it, and I have that option as a learner. Now, this is a little bit different from what I showed you guys earlier, where we can embed it in the course. That's another option, but sometimes we have other documents and ancillaries that we want to be able to share with learners as just a side resource for them. So it's different options there. Now, Quiz Builder, Dr. Hill knows this is one of my favorite features that we have in the LMS. I absolutely love this. When we turn this on, what this does is allows learners to create a single quiz from all quizzes in a course, which will include all incorrect or unanswered questions. They can also decide to add in questions that they also previously got correct. It's completely up to them. They can hide the answers till the end, so it almost becomes like a test. And they can select which quizzes in the course they want to add to that. So if a course has multiple quizzes, they could select all of them, or they could select one of them, and then it allows them to do like a little quiz of a quiz and really test those things that are difficult for them. So as we were mentioning earlier, if you have a test with pools and I say, oh, I got all of the questions wrong from that particular pool, I could go back to that course or section and say, let me re-quiz on that. And it just gives a nice option for that. Continue to display assessment results. So enabling this will allow the learner to continue to see their results from their quizzes and tests. If it's not turned on, it actually is a little bit confusing for the learner, because when they come back to that page, if they were for some reason to come back to that page, it will look like they haven't taken it before, even though the system knows they've taken it and any reporting data would show that they've taken it. From the learner's perspective, this results page isn't there. So it looks like they haven't taken it. So if you have a quiz or a test, I highly recommend we just go ahead and turn on that display assessment results. It's much better for the learner. They can still retake it if they want to, but it won't make them seem like they have to take it. Because I've gotten lots of questions like, oh, I already took this. I'm like, yeah, I see your results in your assessment part of your profile. And they're like, but it's showing that I have to take it. And I'm like, it's actually not. It's just because that setting isn't turned on. Okay. Now, show progress. This is something that I also like to turn on. And what this will do is give the learners full transparency into exactly what they need to do to complete a course. Okay, so they'll know how much time and how far they are in your course to get their certificate or to be finished, right? So this is a nice feature to turn on just so that the learners know where their progress is, and we highly recommend this one as well. And last is our gallery. So gallery isn't a feature that we use often, but if a gallery is enabled, it's something that allows learners to have a forum in order to upload images and share and comment within a course. So they add a gallery, it will allow them to add this image, and then people are able to comment on whatever image it is that they've added. So that is what the gallery feature is. Okay. So we're going to go back up here and we're going to move into the little sidebar tools that I skipped over, and that's reflections. And the reason I skipped over them was because they kind of need like a whole section in and of themselves, because there's some new things here. So we're going to talk about reflections, linked reflections, and skipping to a reflection summary, okay? So when reflections are turned on, what this is, a reflection is basically an assessment page type in your course that allows a learner to reflect. So it allows them to fill something out. It used to be called a workbook. For anyone who has been in our system for a little bit, it was a workbook that's now a reflection. So it allows the learners to answer questions. You can do any of the quiz questions types, any of the quiz question types as a reflection question as well. So it could be true, false, multiple choice, short answer. You can put any of those in there, Likert scale, anything like that that you want. But the difference here is that it's not graded. Okay, so you're not saying if it's correct or incorrect. All you're doing is giving them a chance to reflect on whatever that material is. So for my example here, I have a self-assessment. And what happens here is when I turn on that reflections, if I have any reflection page types in my course, this will allow your learners to easily navigate back to reflections that they've completed. Okay, so they can see it's complete, they can view it, or they could click to it to complete it. A brand new feature is the ability to have linked reflections. When I have linked reflections turned on, this allows me to label my reflection. So this is very different than if it's not turned on, where I take it and if I opened it back up again, it will have me retake it. With a linked reflection, what it's going to have me do is it's going to have me label it. And once I label it, that reflection then becomes a permanent product that I can go back to. And each time I'm going to do it, I'm going to create a new one. Okay, so it's not going to copy over itself. So here in my example, I have a learner who's doing a self-assessment. So the first section that they're doing is on task list A items, and they're just assessing themselves and where they're at. And they would be able to complete that and date it so that they could then look back and say, okay, this is where I was in November, and just, this is where I am now in December, for example. Then we can also do a linked reflection workbook summary, and that is exactly what it sounds like, which is I can take multiple reflection pages and put them together in a single summary. So here, my section 1 foundations is one reflection page, and section 2 is a completely separate reflections page. And what I've done is put them together so I can create one single summary, and I can see the results or answers rather for this self-assessment in one page. I have the ability to email this and print this. This is something that you could do as an assessment, or you could do it as like performance reviews, things like that could be utilized for this. And it's a really nice way to do that. And then you could even pull those back into CentralReach, into your enterprise account if you want to provide a task of like, hey, I want you to complete this with a link to that, or I want you to take this or that course because of your score on this. Okay, so there's a lot of options there. And then now you also have the ability to take it on behalf of a learner. So what that means is that I can toggle that on. I can select my learner that I want to complete that reflection on behalf of, and then I could be filling out the survey here to say, how is this learner doing? So I can see, okay, this is how they are performing, and do it as like a performance eval on my staff. And this is a really nice way to use reflections. All right, we're moving into our final stages here. So now that we've set up all of our design and display settings, we're going to move to completion and certificates. And this is the last section that we really have to focus on getting set up. So the first thing we're going to look at is our completion criteria. So we're going to look, we have some options here for criteria type, percentage of video viewed. This is a new feature, assessment passed, and pages viewed. So you can select certain assessments to be passed. You can select certain pages that have to be viewed. You can force linear progress, meaning that they have to go go through the course in order. This makes it a little bit more salient for learners when progress is being tracked for course completion. So it is nice to turn that on if you're having them spend a certain amount of time in their course. For criteria type, let's say we select, we can select assessment like I showed you. Let's say we do select assessments, then I come down here and I can select whichever ones I'm requiring. Maybe it's all of them. So I'll select one, quiz one, and then I'll go back and say I want to select another one, and I'll select both my reflections here that I've created as well. Once I've done that, then the system will say that, you know what, this course isn't complete until all of those things have been done. Once I have my completion criteria set up, then I'm going to move into setting up my certificate. So I'm going to put in my title. I'm going to decide, does it expire? So this is really important for those courses that need to be retaken on an annual or biannual basis. And you can decide like, oh, it needs to expire after 365 days. Then the learner can get a notification saying, hey, your course has expired and you need to retake it. Then I'm going to put in my certificate image. So when you upload your certificate image, there are certain fields that we in the system, in the LMS, are able to pull in when you generate your certificate for learners, and certain ones that have to be hard coded. Okay, so we're going to break this all down for you. Anything highlighted in yellow is what needs to be hard coded in your certificate. So that includes your ACE provider information, hours awarded, instructor, your course location, if it's different from online async and online synchronous. And you should not be pulling in any of the other fields that are available there, because those are for CRUs only. Now, for your pull in the name field, all you have to do is drag over learner name, and this will automatically add your learner name to the certificate. Same thing for BACB number. You're going to pull in this BACB certificate number, and it will generate this certificate number for your learner. We do ask that as our survey onboarding question, so that should be in anyone's profile who is a BCBA. Here, you'll put in pull over course title, and that will pull in the title of your course. For course started, that will, you'll pull over course start, and then that will generate the date that the learner started the course. Same thing for completion. You're going to pull over completion date, and this will add the date the course was completed by the learner for you automatically. And then we do have online asynchronous at institute.centralreach.com as a location option for you, as well as online synchronous. So the rest of the items that you may want on your certificates need to be hard coded into that image that you pull in. Everything else you will be able to pull in with our fields that are readily available for you. All right, so thank you guys so much for joining us today. Dr. Hill and I had such a pleasure sharing all these things that we're so nerdy and geeky about that we absolutely love in the LMS, and we enjoy sharing it all with you. We can't just wait to see all the great courses you guys are going to create. And if you still have questions, feel free to reach out to us at institute-support@centralreach.com. And now I think we have a little time for Q&A. Thanks so much.